Last week, we talked about the creation. This week, our theme is prayer. In prayer, we can take an active role in the bond that God forms with us as a creation. Through prayer, we respond to the gifts of God and to the needs of the world and ourselves. In other words, we talk to God. We make ourselves open to God. Prayer is also a refuge when we feel alone or discouraged. We can always talk to God and have faith that we are heard.
Each day of this week, our devotions will look at a different form of prayer, beginning today with a form of prayer called adoration. This little book called Call on Me is a book of prayers that defines adoration as a kind of prayer when we focus our heart and mind on God, simply to enjoy being in the company of God. In other words, it's when we say, God, I love you. Of all the kinds of prayer we will look at this week, adoration is probably the kind that we practice the least. To adore God is a one-way street. We simply devote ourselves for a few minutes to appreciating God. Sometimes it happens by accident. We might see something beautiful in the world that reminds us of God's beauty. We might feel love or joy that reminds us of the love and joy we have in God. In addition to looking at these different kinds of prayer each day, we will also look at where those kinds of prayer appear in our Book of Common Prayer, which you'll be familiar with from our Sunday services. And an example of where adoration shows up is at the end of the Sunday service when the priest stands up to bless the people. But first the priest says these words, "The peace of God, which passeth all understanding, keep your hearts and minds in the knowledge and love of God." This is a prayer that we can go forward into the week with this adoration prayer in our hearts, not just on Sundays, but every day.
We can also practice this kind of prayer on purpose. We might start each day by focusing our mind on God's goodness, not just the gifts He provides for us, but His goodness. Or we might end each day by setting aside things that happen for a few minutes while we allow ourselves to feel love towards God. Our food for thought this week: can you remember a time when you suddenly felt love for God? What was that like? Have you ever felt like there's no one to talk to? God is always there. Take a moment today to tell God that you love Him.